Right, beautiful. All right, so today is exciting. I'm actually going to stop share and get the gallery view here, so I can see all your shining faces. So, what am I feeling called to do in terms of embodiment today? So like yesterday, I want to invite everyone, totally up to you, to drop in and notice anything that you smell or taste or see. We'll start with that. I just lit some incense. It's amazing. I'm like having a real incense moment right now. And one of the things that is super effective, again, our bodies are really, really literal. And so one of the most fun things and effective things that we can do is touch it to make it feel different. So I know yesterday a lot of folks were coming in with stress, overwhelm. Some of you were curious and feeling on the brink of something. It's like, I can relate to that as well. And so whatever you're feeling, it's always temporary, right? I mean, it's like Captain Obvious, right? And anytime that you want to just experiment with shifting how you're feeling, though, again, every feeling is welcome. There's no need to change anything. But sometimes it feels nice to kind of expand through emotions. And our body's just a really powerful tool to do that. And so one of the things that I really love to do, and I'll invite you all to just like mimic me a little bit, try what I call the gorilla chest pound. It's a form of tapping that stimulates this vagus nerve, this really powerful cranial nerve that goes down through your earlobes, through your throat, your lungs, your belly, all the way to your cervix. So pretty like kind of important nerve, right? And you'll notice, especially if you're kind of stretching like outward a little, shoulders back, you might notice that as you're tapping, you're like getting some resonance going through the trunk area. You're literally just reprogramming the signal that's being sent through the cranial nerve into your brain. So all of this, the gut feelings that you're having and signals coming from your breath, you're actually, hopefully that feels a little soothing and good, at least, if you're doing it in a way that feels gentle and loving, and it feels kind of like a massage. That restful relaxation, pleasurable sensation becomes the message that your brain receives. And also, I mean, again, just like our bodies are so literal, you're kind of shaking out, like, how like dogs shake when they're like been nervous and then they get to relief, get some relief. I'm not going to have you all stand up and do a big shake today because my shoulder's messed up and that would actually hurt me. But shaking, anything that like vibrates is really, really, really powerful. And I really love this. Try the same thing with the kind of like these bits of your hand. You can try it on your thighs too. Oh, it's really nice. It like helps me feel the ground under my feet. And we're doing all of this embodied woo-woo stuff in part because it's just a really critical daily practice, given that this, meat sack is our ride to work and play and interrelating and all of that. It's pretty important. And dropping into it and feeling soothed, grounded to the extent that, is possible can be really, really, really powerful. And so for a bunch of reasons, right? When we're feeling safe, our creativity becomes accessible again. Our curiosity becomes accessible again. All those things that just vanish as soon as we feel like we're being chased by a tiger again, which is kind of the environment that's rewarded that we design in capitalism, right? So again, kind of an act of resistance to drop into the body and just reclaim it a little bit by making it feel how you want it to feel. Okay, so I'm like done with my slide era. So no slides today. I'm actually going to dive right into spreadsheets. So I'm going to just get this link teed up for you guys so I can share it in a moment. But we're gonna the big bulk that we're gonna get into today is gonna be around mapping out your revenue strategy and having a sense of what your runway might be if you got a certain amount of revenue coming in outside of your day job, and really kind of answering this question of, okay, how much money am I going to charge for this thing, right? So yesterday was a really, really powerful step in developing the headline of what you do, right? What your gifts are. And now we're just going to add this next step to hammer out the nitty gritty about exactly what you can charge money for, how much, and what that means for your financial stability and your ability to plan for your family and save money and make investments and all of that stuff. So I'm going to share with you my actual spreadsheet for my actual business plan. I also downloaded just a couple of spreadsheets that I don't necessarily use, but can be if you're a spreadsheet person. Anyone a spreadsheet person? Just say me. Like, I think I sniff some spreadsheet people in this group. It's sort of fun to be able to play with these numbers and feel a little bit more empowered by them rather than terrified about and triggered by the fact that we're talking about money. So hopefully you'll end today with just this really tangible, clear, like almost shockingly simple sense of visibility into what it could look like to support yourself in some way through a business that you run for yourself, rather than having to tolerate anything that you don't enjoy tolerating in your corporate gig right now. Okay, so real quick, just a show of hands. So say me in the chat if you had a chance to refine your stitch last night after we got off the call, or maybe you just looked at it again or noodled on it a little more. Awesome. Beautiful, beautiful. So keep doing it, right? Again, this is the MVP, the first draft. It's gonna continue to evolve. I don't know, man, my job changes every day. That doesn't mean you need to, be rewriting your resume every single day, but it's an evolving document. It's a living document that you'll continue to iterate on as you develop more clarity, run experiments, get more data back, and move forward accordingly. So I will start today by offering a little bit of a coaching session, again, a little live action on one more rev of a stitch for anyone who wants to do that, in service of segueing into productizing it, right? Breaking it down into the spreadsheet items of revenue sources that then we're going to price out and project as revenue on a spreadsheet that you will then actually have for your business from now on. So really good stuff. So if that's you, if you're feeling called to be in the love seat today, I invite you to do that. All that said, you might notice that there was nothing really revolutionary in what I was teaching yesterday, right? It's kind of just telling your story in very discrete, concise, and precise terms, right? Probably something that you could have coached someone else to do if it weren't you telling your own story, right? And so what I'll offer here, because it would just be I don't know, it would be misleading to say, oh yeah, guys, just come to this 90-minute workshop 3 days in a row and you'll be good. You're off to the races. Bye. See you never, right? That's just not actually how this intensely spiritual, expansive experience of creating art and charging money for it and developing your inner world and your ability to have impact on a world that needs your healing gifts. It's a big deal that requires a lot of community. And so rather than kind of just, cold pitching you on how awesome it is to be in my programs, I actually was catching up in the Fearless Femmes WhatsApp thread, which is bumping, by the way, that everyone who's ever been a member of Femmes is in it. It's just a wonderful way to keep in touch day to day. And Jody, who's here today, was sort of talking about how, well, I'll let her tell the story, but it was just this really amazing moment where she was like, I think that the thing that really struck me, Jody, was when you said, I can't believe I used to dread my every day. I used to dread my day every morning, right? And so I'm actually kind of curious, just in service of kind of fleshing out and adding some dimension to these tactics that we're covering today, I just want people to hear from someone who's been on this journey for a while and has made a lot of progress in it about how you did it, how you did it, right? Yes, there were tactics and yes, they were helpful, but I just know that people here who are maybe feeling the way that you were a year ago, or gosh, probably a year ago, wasn't it? They'll resonate with where you were. And then also maybe I just want to give them an opportunity to resonate with where you are today. So just tell your story. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what the big takeaways were for how you landed where you are right now and how it feels to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me share this. So like many of you, I was incredibly burnt out. And to be quite honest, I just hated my life because I hated my day to day. So right now, just for some context, I am working on building my own application to help healthcare workers reduce burnout. So I'm becoming a founder myself. How crazy is that? So many lessons I've learned throughout this process, how I did it. So I have one main lesson for you ladies, or for everyone here, and everything sort of bridges from that lesson. The main lesson here is know yourself and own yourself. So why do I say that? Well, knowing yourself is knowing what your values are, knowing what your purpose is in life, and knowing what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And I imagine that a lot of you already know this. It's just you really have not been able to have the confidence or the agency to really, really own it. So that's the owning it part, is live your every single day to the best of your abilities to what actually works for you. For me, I didn't want to live the traditional life, and I was feeling like I was constantly forced to live in this traditional product manager role that I was uninspired by. So that's my main takeaway. And I think from that, I've, made a few changes based off of that one main lesson. And that means having my life move slower. I've accomplished more in 8 months than I think I've accomplished in the last 2 years working a corporate job. I mean, let that sink in. I think two is being comfortable with the unknown. You're not going to know everything, and that is okay. That's a lot of deconditioning we have to do. And I would say the third thing is perfection isn't the end goal. We've all been duped to think that we have to be perfect. We actually don't. And with all of this, what you can learn is that all the things that you think you might hate, you might end up enjoying at the end of the day. So for example, I was putting together projections, business projections, for potentially figuring out how I'm going to build my MVP. If you talked money to me last year, I probably would have vomited. I actually found doing financial projections so exciting the other day. And I was like, I don't know who this person is. So just, yeah, take that away and really kind of figure out who you are and really just own that. We don't have to live the traditional lifestyle if we don't want to. There are so many more options truly out there. So that is my story.
Oh, thanks so much, Jody. And it's just an honor watching you grow and blossom in this way as as an artist in your own right, creating, alchemizing this career from nothing, right? Like there was, just like a blank canvas before, and now there is this really marvelous creation that's growing every day. So again, if you're all looking at a spreadsheet that kind of forces you to put down into words and into numbers and into, in a way, like a commitment, it'll start to feel really real. And so that's why, again, I would be remiss not to just offer right at the outset, if it feels good to you to operate with the support of community, with the wisdom of people who are on a similar journey, perhaps with a guide, whether it's me or not, right? With a guide who, again, can help you with the shortcuts. I really, really want you to consider booking a call with me. Just here's this link that I'll start out with, Calendly. This is a custom link for the folks who are really interested and committed in exploring starting their own thing. Again, consulting practice, coaching business, just anything that requires you to sit down, make a creative plan and commit to it and get accountability to execute. And then create all of the conditions physiologically, emotionally, and spiritually for you to actually pull it off and make forward progress for yourself as a human being, as well as for the business. Check out this link that I just posted in the chat, and we'll just explore what your goals are and if the Fearless Femmes deal is right for you. Again, it's not right for everyone, and that's what we'll determine on the call. You will leave the call with a ton of clarity about what your next steps should be. And again, if I'm not the right person for you, I will absolutely refer you to the right direction. Part of the trick in pulling this crazy career path off is just being the person that you are becoming, right? Just be her today, be them today. Showing up twice, 2 days in a row, more than most people do. Exploring with another person who can guide you to take the next step. That's the kind of person you are, right? That's the person that you want to be, and just there's a certain moment where you just have to decide to be it today. Actually, I'm curious to hear your perspective on this, Jody. Knowing that Femmes isn't for everyone, right? Who totally should join Femmes, again, so people can maybe self-identify and hit that link. Do you have a sense of who that is?
Yeah, I would say two things. I think you have to have an interest in emotional intelligence. I mean, if you're the type of person that's like, oh, I don't want to take emotion, I don't want to talk emotions, have that negative connotation, I think that's going to be a little bit rough, like becoming comfortable with that. I think number two is being a high performer. If you want something out of your life, I mean, no one's going to join like a coaching program if they're not motivated. So I think you have to be a high performer. And I would guarantee that every single person on this call is a high performer.
Even in moments where we might feel burned out and there's maybe it even feels like there's a little bit of a hole you got to dig out of. We definitely resonate with that. And again, we take time to get your body into really high performing order. So that's a huge, huge step that I invite everyone to take if it feels like the right time. In the meantime, let's get abstract a little bit. So I'm going to just look at everyone here. Who just say, go off mute and you can say me if you want to just give me the stitch as it exists today and get support in creating this, the first sort of the backbone of your business plan together today. I promise it's really fun.
I'll go.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. So what I'm going to do with everyone here is I'm sending you the link to this master spreadsheet. And you'll notice here, just a quick, a quick orientation, because I know that everyone's going to start, clicking through tabs and all this. But I promise we'll get to the really good parts here in a second. I added a bunch of these tabs through this download from I think it's this organization called Foresight.com. Again, I downloaded this stuff this morning, right? I mean, my business, the parts that are my business plan existed beforehand, but I figured I would add a couple more tools in there for people who just want to kind of like explore what it's like to run a spreadsheet like this, which as your business gets more complex and more mature, more and more of these tabs will become relevant. And it's kind of fun to, at least for me, to project into that future, right? But today we're going to drill down into what is most relevant for someone who is just starting out. Again, it can be fun to experience the revenue as your playground, and I want to encourage that mindset. But ultimately, we got to focus on where that points of highest leverage are, and that's always, always, always going to be at some of the earlier tabs, the 2023 revenue projection. That tab at the bottom you can select. So this was my 2023 work that I did late last year, and then right next to it is KPIs. So those are the two tabs that we're going to be looking at today, and frankly, you could delete the rest of these for the next 18 months and you wouldn't miss them. So if you need help or feel overwhelmed by so many tabs, we can just delete the rest and come back to them later, because these are the ones that actually really matter. Okay, so I'm going to, and you can, by the way, of course, make a copy of this spreadsheet, copy away, make it your own. It is yours now. So my Christmas or holiday gift to you. All right, let's see. Magda, was that you who offered? You wanted to go? Oh wait, who said me? Sorry.
I did, but
Oh,
if they want to go, no, it's totally. There was like a long pause, and I thought, well, I'll be patient and
no,
put myself on the.
Perfect. I was just looking at Magda for some reason, but yes, done. Let's get after it. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here for a moment. And what I'm going to show you first, before we really get into the, the revenue projections and modeling, right? We don't want to put the cart before the horse. There is an extent to which we want to make sure we have a sense of like, what type of product we're actually going to be selling here. And basically, there's 4 ways that you can make $10,000 a month. That, again, or maybe 20 or 30 or more, right? You'll notice that in my spreadsheet, there's seasonal fluctuations. That's all stuff that we'll get to later. But at the outset, there's just a thing roughly that's your MVP that you're going to start selling at first, right? And so here, I'll share my screen. This product here, Brainstorm, is something that I do with all of my clients, and I have changed the names here because it's a confidential info for people's businesses in my program. But these are actually their product tier brainstorms. We did this in a session a couple months ago. And you'll notice just how wildly diverse each of these things are, right? So Anjali is a digital clothing designer, right? So she creates virtual clothing that then gets marketed and sold to video game manufacturers, or Banana Republic's e-commerce site. Right? Really cool stuff. So she's got this really interesting kind of niche skill. And now she wants to do it on her, without a boss, right? Being her own boss on her own. And so we came up, just again, through a brainstorm, with what she would use her gifts. Like, if she were to charge $100 for her gifts, what would be included? How about $1,000? How about $10,000? How about $100,000? Right? For my programs, I'm really happy at this $10,000 tier, right? And so what's included in my programs is a lot of one-on-one access, a course that you get lifetime access to, and 2 to 3 group sessions per month, right? So that's what's included at my tier. And for Anjali, it's training and organization to consume her output for 5 outfits and a starter kit for their library that they can then use on an ongoing basis, right? For Maria, she wanted to expand her side hustle for photography, right? So we came up with similarly $100,000 to $100,000 price, or tiers, and what would be included. And she really gravitated towards weddings, special events. Again, they get a bigger time investment and a vision for how the day is going to go, and some structure there, and some additional staff. And then lastly, Kim is going to be doing like soulful and mindful partnership work for big tech, doing consulting for big tech organizations. And she's really in particular interested in consulting on emotional intelligence into AI and setting someone up with a partner strategy, right? So again, for that $10,000 tier, she's got this replicable process, probably something she can, with some customization, like rinse and repeat over and over again, getting to know really what the, customizing based on what the client needs are, right? You notice that it's way more high touch than just a downloadable PDF guide for $100, right? So for each of these top 2, we just got to a place where it's like, cool, we're just estimating order of magnitude for how many units you would have to sell of each thing to get to 10K a month. For Kim, we for her, she was thinking more in terms of quarterly revenue. Don't think about it too hard. This is just kind of, again, forecasting a little bit about how many of a thing you need to sell to make a certain amount of revenue. So obviously each of these 4 tiers are seriously informed by the stitch. Right? We had written the stitch beforehand, revised it, really extracted what those skills are, what they love doing, right? And kind of came up with with this matrix of these product tiers. So Dawn, when you look at this, I'm just going to copy paste this for you down here at the bottom. Let's start with just revisiting your stitch briefly. And then we'll build this out into these tiers. And I would love in the chat if folks are hearing Dawn's stitch and are like, oh my gosh, I have an idea. Oh, I would that's so interesting. You should totally charge $1,000 for this, right? This is where the brainstorm can really, really be fun. And again, the wisdom of the crowd goes a long way. So Dawn, why don't you get us kicked off just by familiarizing us with your stitch again?
Sure. So I'll start out with where I was before yesterday, and then where I got to after yesterday. We'll see if there's any improvement. So coming into it, I had narrowed down weeks of reflection and thought to, I help businesses and organizations strategically determine which problems are worth solving and then engage with teams to solve them. And then after our work yesterday, I went a little bit further to try to get specific. And said, I help time-pressured executives who are struggling with their team's multiple good ideas evaluate which of these ideas to focus on. With my outcomes-based strategy and actionable roadmap, the executive team gets everything they need to deliver predictable product market fit and revenue, using an intersection of research, market signals, technology, as well as other compliance considerations. Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now.
Killer. I love it. So in particular, there's a really just a little bit. Let me make sure everyone's on mute here. And then Dawn, you can unmute yourself again. Sorry. There we go. Awesome. So I actually heard a couple of discrete deliverables already baked into your stitch. So based on that, do you want to just create a little bit of well, I'll just kind of turn this into like scratch notes down here just briefly. What were some of the, in case I got most of them down in the notes, but I may have missed one. What are some of like the outcomes where you're like, yes, here is the work I did for you, customer/client. Here's the thing that you get. Well, do you want to just make it just a raw list? We'll start there.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things is being able to transform ideas into opportunities. And so the specific deliverable around that would be, a very clear document or set of content document with an artifact that includes a variety of different inputs in order for them to clearly understand the nature of that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So clearly understand the nature. Often what we mean when we say that is like sizing it. Is that kind of what you're getting at? Or
there would be size, there would be like competitive analysis pieces, market signals, some of the voice of the customer, any regulatory or compliance requirements, privacy and security. Is there AI involved? Like just being able to go through what's the problem we're trying to solve, what's the hypothesis around it, and what is the background information that we need. And then from there, to your point, we can size it. That's how we get to the priorities and determining which ones are actually worth going after.
So there's like a recommendation for what the company strategy should be.
Right.
Cool.
And there's also like a prioritization matrix, like being able to help them even determine how do we prioritize one idea over another and tailoring that to the organization.
Oops. Gosh, sorry, my Zoom hijacks my mouse. Okay, so let's see. Tailored to the org, right? Cool. Yep. Beautiful stuff. So let's say this to me, tell me if I'm wrong here. This to me kind of like feels like a solid package. Like it seems to me this could be a price tier on like everything put together, right? What would you charge for this? This is a lot. So I'm curious, like order of magnitude. If someone was like, "Yeah, give me all of it, Dawn," like would this be closer to $100,000 or $10,000? It's definitely not less than that.
It's a minimum 3-month engagement, and I would say if we're looking at, let's say half time for 3 months, like fractional, thinking from that perspective. It would be around between 60 and 75,000. I mean, there's so much value there. So it's like, is it time-based or values-based, right?
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing that I'm happy that these are like the details that we get to fine tune. I do, again, in the program, part of the guides and modules that you just get access to that you can kind of as an index to look up. I have some recommendations for what often works best for certain situations. And again, like this is where case by case, you'll get to kind of weigh some variables and decide what the correct engagement structure is, right? But high level, if you're creating just a menu of services that anyone could come and evaluate and get a sense for what it is that you do. Again, we're talking order of magnitude. 60 to 75,000 is order of magnitude closer to 100,000, right? So again, like there's probably more frills, more hours that you would add to actually get to 100K. But this to me feels like half time for 3 months, fractional exec work. And call it again, like 3 months, just an example, it could be 3 to 6. These types of things are customizable, right? So love it. This is, we've got your $100,000 offering. And again, like to get 10K a month, or, if you want to be, this probably makes more sense to think about it in terms of quarters or halves. You need 2 of these a year. That's it. Like, this is the great thing about whales, you only need 1 or 2. And so being able to really pursue this as a strategy, there's a different marketing strategy, a different funnel, if this is the product tier that you're drawn to, than if you're trying to get 100, or sorry, this should be 100, yes, this should be 1,000, I think. Oh my gosh, I cannot do math and talk at the same time, so forgive me. But this, then it's a very different strategy up funnel to close clients at this tier, right? So let's kind of using this as just our benchmark for the big kahuna. What would be the 10K version of this? Probably something like way shorter, probably something that you've got replicable materials for, right? Kind of like I've got my course is like I did it once and I've been selling it for years, right? I don't have to do it over and over again. So that's what allows me to sell it at 10K. Well, what would it be? What would it be for you?
I'm curious to hear what other people in the group think too, because I have a couple of ideas that maybe others would be willing to share what they think.
Totally. And anyone say me if you're curious about fractional exec work. This is really, really hot. And by the way, Ha Nguyen is doing amazing writing about fractional exec stuff. She's started a fractional product consultancy. She's doing really, really great work. So let's see, I'm just looking at the chat here. Oh yeah, cool. So you guys highly recommend that you all connect, take note of saying who's saying me. Because again, the best way to find clients for this type of work is to go through your community. And here we are creating one. So especially for folks, and yeah, I'm happy to repeat the question. What is an idea that you have for a $10,000 level fractional product or fractional executive offering? Who's got some good ideas?
Are you asking specific to, is it Dawn, I believe, or
Yeah.
in general?
Yeah, this is for Dawn in particular, for just at the moment.
I would think of something as an introductory consultant about how to proceed as a $10,000 offering. Not actually doing the work, but maybe guiding a company on the sources to look for, resources to consider, a timeline that they can expect for the work.
Yeah. Beautiful. Oops. Oh, goodness. So market, so I'm just writing Art down before her chat disappears. So market signals, document, right? So there's like a framework maybe that you can pop out there. And Magda, sorry, I wanted to capture that before it disappeared in my chat. Say what you were talking about again. So it would be sort of like maybe a prioritization framework. Again, I'm just trying to drill it down in my brain a little bit.
So I did something similar for a client, and it was basically reviewing the scope of the work they were looking for, questions to ask the vendors they were discussing, engaging in a conversation about whether it was a product or project management support that they were really needing, and guiding their next conversation with the vendors they approached.
So I feel like there's almost like a workshop opportunity that like where you're sitting and teaching, right? Like Magda, this sounds like it's a way to describe what you're talking about. So you're sitting and teaching the team to do to interact with vendors a certain way.
And also to maybe teaching them about creating or developing their product conversation. Mm-hmm. The vendor that I worked with specifically did not understand the difference between product and project. Mm-hmm. And so we took apart the work that they were looking for.
Yeah. And I feel like for $10,000, so sorry to interrupt you. Did you
okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. I feel like I got excited. I feel one idea to kind of build on for both of you. There's a retainer model that I really love, where you're just on a $10,000 a month retainer, and you make 20 hours a week available technically. And by the way, I love it because there's a ton of breakage, a lot of hours that don't get used. And again, it's the value that you provide and the hours that you are there is so immense that it offsets the breakage. But when you're teaching someone the difference between project and product, it's not just let's look it up in the dictionary and cool, we're all clear. There's like a real reimagining of process and understanding of how teams interrelate and work streams and goals and objectives for a team, rituals, right? And that usually takes, it's being on call is really nice for a team undergoing that type of that transformation. So I think there's a like coaching retainer kind of thing, where you're like, yep, here's my office hours anytime. And I've done this, right, for product teams, back when that was more my focus. I was just available for the whole product team. They knew exactly when my open office hours were, and they would book a little one-on-one session in that time. And some, like most weeks, they'd use it. Someone would use it, but sometimes they wouldn't, and that was okay if they didn't need it. But having the options valuable. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we also got into discussing the value of working with an American-based vendor versus an abroad-based vendor. Things like our skill sets, capacity to meet the goals, a language barrier, and creating an internal support, right?
Yeah.
Defining what that long-term support looked like for the product they were building.
Yeah, killer. So I do see that. I mean, that's if we're trying to universalize this product here, I still think that really falls under incredibly valuable retainer coaching. Right? Good stuff. Any other ideas? And actually, Dawn, you said you had some ideas yourself, or anything that we didn't hit here you want to add?
And did that help you, Dawn?
It did, and I see Ksenia.
Yeah. I think you hit it on the head, Becca. Like I did this actually with a client this spring, kind of a try before you buy model, where at the $10,000 mark, although I did not charge nearly that much and should have, I did come in and worked with the CEO first to understand, almost like from a general consulting point of view, like how do you view your problems? How do you view your relationship with your teams? Kind of that initial interview, right? And then you kind of come back and synthesize, here's what I see objectively in an unbiased perspective, where I think the opportunities lie and so forth, as that very initial cursory consultation, and then came on site and held a workshop, just like you described, Becca, to help the team engage with how do they see their priorities. And by surfacing those, it demonstrated some of the discord and some of the misalignment around the mission and vision. And so that gives you more tools to come back to. So it's like a build and saying, okay, now that you have this in hand, how are you going to do it? How are you going to implement it? Like, I don't know, like, cool, I can do that with you and for you, and do that fractional product work.
Killer. And by the way, if anyone here really gets, gets the glitter, as we call it in FEMS, like gets the glitter from teaching and guiding workshops, which again, sometimes it can sound a little scary at first, but like once you do it, you're like, oh, I feel like I just went skydiving. That was amazing. It's a really, really powerful product and marketing strategy. So we'll talk about marketing and the funnel, and how marketing doesn't have to feel like marketing. It can just feel like more art tomorrow. But this type of product is really well suited for the $10,000 here. Again, it can be one-offs, it can be workshop packages. And one of my favorite parts of the FEMS program is just how easy it is to build our own confidence, to just generate frameworks, like even visual diagrams, like infographics and stuff. I'll literally sit with FEMS, and we will, in our session, when there's a topic that I want to teach on, but I don't necessarily have an infographic on it yet, we'll just generate one live together. And it is one of the most fun, like kind of creative modes of leading a workshop. And also then everyone gets some authorship rights to what we create. It becomes theirs that they can then use in their engagements. So really, really powerful stuff. When we're creating this type of stuff together, God, is just way more fun than doing it by yourself. I really recommend it. Okay, cool. So how about $1,000 tier? And you'll notice, guys, that like you'll probably start having a lot more ideas and energy around certain product tiers more than others. Like some of these, if we look up here, some of them I had to like drag it out of my client to like get to name a certain product tier. They're like, oh, I would never do that. And I'm like, that is so good to know that there's a product tier that you don't want to do. Like, let's name it and strike it out. Right? That is not something we're going to be doing right now. And so maybe that's kind of when we were edging up on that for you, Dawn. What's a $1,000 thing that you could offer, if you had to only charge $1,000?
That's a tough one. I think it could be potentially like a half-day consult to really understand where they are in their organization. So maybe 2 or 3 stakeholder interviews with key players to assess you know, the current state, and then that would lead into the $10,000 mark of saying, here's the workshop package, or here's the package I recommend for you if it's a prioritization framework or market signals, or, you know, a larger thing. So maybe talking to 2 or 3 people, getting those perspectives together, and then making a recommendation on, you know, which of the packages would be most beneficial to that business at this point in time.
So it's almost like a discovery session, right?
Yes, thank
And,
you.
Yeah. So I love
Name
that.
it. A discovery session.
There's benefits in having done this for a while. There's like, oh, there are names for things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that. I love that also because it's a way of creating genuine value. It's also meeting people where they are. There's a lot of people who are nervous, or I don't know, they have a lot of emotional baggage about investing $10,000, even if it's their company's money and not their own. Like, that's totally understandable. Like, well, yeah, we've got money hangups. It's a big deal. And so a great way to meet people where they are without shortchanging anyone, and while still giving them the opportunity to get value from you. You're offering this $1,000 thing. And if it's the right thing to graduate up to work with you more deeply, great. And if it's not, it won't be, you know.
Yeah.
Like, it's
And this would have to be something where you'd have to limit it, right? You couldn't just be doing, you know, 10 of these a week. It would be like one discovery session every 2 weeks, because it's not really, it's actually kind of a deal in a way. I mean, it's a funnel, but it's, you know.
Yeah. So this is where we get to kind of look at the economics of this, right? So you'd have to sell 10 of these to get to 10K a month. And then we start to imagine doing 10 of them, and we're like, oh, again, it's a very intuitive led decision. For some people, they would be jazzed as hell to do that, but not you. That's not you. That's not the business you get to run, or that you have to run. So again, this is where our intuition and the gut, almost like you're being drawn towards one of these options. I mean, that's just the one you do. There's no such thing as, again, we're not reacting to what we think the market wants here. We're totally generating this internally, even though it's all, you know, heady and on a spreadsheet, it's still deeply intuitive, right? Cool stuff. And so just for fun, what would be the $100 thing, right? Probably something downloadable. Yeah, for $100, we want to kind of be like no touch, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
It could be, first off, curious to hear any ideas that anyone has. I think I hear like a monthly subscription to your newsletter. There could be a downloadable PDF targeted towards executives, right? It's like, download this thing and you'll have rights to it. Substack podcast ads. Good stuff.
Perhaps it could be a prep document that would help them to prepare for the $1,000 level.
Yep.
That's a great idea, Katie, because now you're making that half day even more efficient, because you're saying, okay, prepare, these are kinds of questions I'm going to come with. And so it's interesting.
I would even consider starting the conversation around what the difference between product and project, a written document that starts the conversation for them to consider what they're looking for.
So we're kind of talking about like downloadables, downloadable resources, right? That's the word. Thanks, Magda. So downloadable resources, they're really great, right? And again, there's so much value. There's so many ways to think about value, and this is where we'll get into this discussion more tomorrow. You know, I make my downloadable resources available for free. That's because when I get your email address, that is worth so much more to me than $100. You know what I mean? Again, there's no reason not to do both if that feels aligned for you. But for me, it's also just a little bit of a peek behind the curtain here. One of the ways that I live into my values of not gatekeeping, making these resources accessible to as many people as possible, regardless of income or social status, is that like I charge, you know, relatively high prices, because most of my clients, most of the people who get the best results from me have had 6-figure jobs for a long time. Frankly, they just can't afford this $10,000 thing. But there's also a ton of people who could benefit from my resources who could not afford it. And so I give it away for free. That's it. That's just part of my business calculus that, you know, my revenue considerations and my business growth is one thing, but also I have metrics and KPIs around impact. So the number of scholarships I'm able to sponsor for people, the number of downloadable resources that were downloaded for free. All of these are proxies for for my impact, right? So there's just, it's so easy, guys, to have an impact-based business and also make revenue. It's just not complicated. Like, see how simple that was? It's just not hard. I do a lot of things for free and then charge people who can afford it. That's it. That's my whole business plan. And that's, that's how I live into my values of equity and being accessible. So everyone who works with me runs through that calculus for themselves and gets a lot of creative support if they're feeling like they have to choose between money and impact, right? Anyone feel like they have to choose between purpose or impact and money? Just say me in the chat. Yeah, really, really common limiting.
So hard.
Right? It's a tough one. And again, it makes total sense. Like we've got this nervous system level programming around money being terrifying, right? It's like literally life and death. Or at least we've been trained to see it that way, right? Especially in the US where we've got all of this, rhetoric around being the lone wolf and, relying on your community's weakness and being a provider and blah, 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 blah. Like, or being a provider or being worthless, right? So yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it requires a ton of support and unlearning. So yeah, makes total sense.
Can I share something really quick?
Yeah.
On this thing about money, I have had these ideas for a long time and I could never figure out how to make the money work. Like that literally stunted any movement on it.
Yeah.
Until I finally started talking to people just about the ideas. And thankfully I'm in a community where there's a benefit to the work that they're doing, adjacently, I should say. But now they're approaching me about one of the ideas that I took to them might actually become a research center to that degree. And another idea has grants associated to it that would put me in an incubator space.
Yeah.
And they're very specific, they're very niche. And Becca, you used to talk about finding these niche areas in the early conversations we had. But I just posted, I feel like I'm missing the money part of the entrepreneurship role. I love the innovation. I love creating impact. I love doing other things, but figuring out how to make the money work is the part that has really stumped me. And it's just now seems to be evolving itself.
Yeah. It's actually, this is the funny thing. The reason why I love this spreadsheet is because it's so stupid simple, isn't it? Like it's embarrassingly simple. It's really the reason, again, this is why I in part it's like, how can I give all this away and still have a profitable business? And the answer is because this isn't the hard part. Period. Like this is the easy part. It gives a lot of momentum. It gives a lot of clarity. It is a great collaborative and creative exercise that like gets your kind of like juices moving. But ultimately, it's a lot of the reason why we lose our ability to create ideas around this, unless we're really guided through it, is because we've got a full body reaction to finance. And I mean, this is what keeps many of us in positions of financial disempowerment. So again, I'm offering as much as I can in a 90-minute segment. I could not possibly pretend that we can deprogram everyone's money baggage in 90 minutes. But that's why the program is 6 months. We make a lot of progress actually in 6 months. It's it's a lifelong effort, but we can get a lot done in that time period. Okay, beautiful. Dawn, so how are these product tiers feeling?
They're feeling good. I agree with your philosophy around the $100 mark. I am very much in support of access and equitable access, done a lot of work in the open source space for that reason, volunteering. So I probably would nix the first tier, line number 23, in favor of the other three. And then the next thing that comes up for me, which is probably where you're headed, is the funnel, right? So, creating a means by which to direct people who would be interested in this type of support or service to you. How do you make that connection, right? And I know there's a lot out there. Dory Clark's written a lot, doing all the work with Brene Brown, and just digging in, right? There's a lot there, but it's like where the rubber hits the road, what is that secret sauce that helps those connections happen? And maybe it's just talking about it, like naming the packages, talking about them, and then, writing great content and people discover you, referrals, things like that. Maybe it's that simple.
Thematically, yes. Like that's roughly correct. However, there are KPIs to measure. There are things to make sure you're keeping up with. There's your natural seasonality to consider, right? When we're projecting what you should be pushing yourself to do versus what feels natural, right? So we'll get into, well, again, there's this is all stacked, right? So today we're going to talk a little bit about KPIs, and I'm going to tell you what mine are, because the actual total truth of it is that I could not possibly tell you what yours are going to be. Nobody can. Do not believe anyone who's like, yes, this is the way. This is the only way to construct a system or a funnel to like yield income. Like, oh my gosh, there are as many opinions out there as there are humans and people trying to sell you the information. But also the only thing that matters is that you do not dread it every day. If you dread it every day, you will not do that shit. I think we all know this. This is demonstrable, right? If there's a thing that I dread every single day, I will drag my feet. I will not be productive. I will not be, show up fully and do my best work if I do it at all, right? So a big thing that I'm going to be doing today is just walking you guys through the KPI spreadsheet theory, because what you'll notice here is that there are, first is the concept of leading versus lagging indicators, right? So leading indicators are the things that we're measuring to feel like we can predict our revenue a little bit, right? Like if I'm not doing these live events, I'm not gonna get new clients. I'm not. Like that is a direct correlation. And roughly, I can anticipate that for every live event I do, assuming that there's like, 200 registrations there were for this, those 200 people go on my email list. So now they're hearing from me all the time. That's another thing that I'm tracking. If I'm building my list by a certain amount every day and I'm doing a certain amount of events every month, then I can bet on about like 5 to 6 new $10,000 clients a month. Like, solid. And maybe that's perfectly fine for me. Maybe I want to keep pushing and innovating and growing. And again, year over year, I can tweak these leading and lagging indicators largely due to what my intuition's telling me I want to be spending my time on, right? Because again, there are just a gazillion ways to skin a cat. That's the truth. And so evaluating what you want your funnel to be, not overcomplicating it the way that our giant, amazing, effective computer brains are wont to do. And again, as high achieving women, we lean on that tool a lot. Can lead us astray in this way. Tomorrow, we're going to really do a reflection to generate your 3-step funnel so that you are doing 3 things. 1 at the top of funnel, 1 mid funnel, and 1 bottom of funnel that works for you. And you're going to run the experiment for at least 6 to 12 weeks. And then you'll be able to put some actual numbers into the spreadsheet and start to iterate again, right? So good stuff. Let's talk about, let's see, where do I want to take this? Don, actually, I'm curious, do you have a burning question that I can tackle? I kind of want to go with where you want to take this, because I'll get to everything by the time the hour and a half's up. Where should I go now? What burning?
I'm actually looking at the,
Mhm.
did someone did you say Dawn, or was someone
Dawn,
raising
yeah.
a hand? Okay. I'm looking at the spreadsheet that you've just shared here, and I'm looking, you've got event registrations, applications received. So we've got this tiered, structure. So you said create infographics, create some information around what those things are, put them out there, and then start to plan out, like, what do I need to achieve by when, which is what this is.
Yeah.
And then the in-between, the gap between those 2 things. So I've got it all prepared. I've got the tiers, I've socialized it, and I get that first application. Like, what is the energy between those 2 things? What is the steps between those 2 things?
Well, let's map it out a little bit, right? So in part, this is going to be about what you feel called to do, but also I think that there's some good, how do I want to say this, like standards that we can lean on. For example, if we're going to be doing a downloadable resource strategy, right? Because all these other things, just you imagine doing them and you're like, oh my God, that drains the shit out of me, right? We actually love the idea of downloadable resources. A really natural progression to get people from kind of knowing about you to, or like hearing about you from somewhere, or not knowing about you at all, to actually downloading this thing probably involves paid ads. Because guys, we got to get 1,000. We got to get 1,000. That's a lot. We're not going to, like I only have 200 people at these things. Like, oh my gosh, I would have to get so, like I would have to sell 1,000. Like how many workshops would I have to do to sell $1,000 things? Oh my God, that's so much. I much prefer this problem of only having one puzzle to solve per month. That feels way better to me because I really love connecting deeply on an energetic level with you guys, like being super real, super high contact, like delivering real value. I cannot do that for 1,000 people a month. I cannot, I would die, right? So when you think of it that way, right, knowing that there's like, we've only got one, I hate calling this a problem, but like one puzzle to solve a month. What could you do? What could you do to close one person a month? Let's start with 3 things. Happy
I think
to.
that,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think that one thing that comes to mind is, I've been really proactive about making deeper connections with people in my network, and to the point that they're becoming friendships, which is great. And so starting to share it with some of my biggest advocates, right? Like walk them through, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, you know me well. And through the power of like intentionality, they're then going to share it. Hey, as soon as they hear a problem from someone else they're connected with, then they could introduce me. Who's one person you would share it with? I know it's not a new idea, but it's a big step. It's a big step of saying, hey, would you be willing to take 30 minutes out of your day so I can share with you this thing, right? So I would say that's one possibility. The second thing that comes to mind is signing up to speak at some conferences, putting out local things in the Boston area, or even more broadly, like getting out there and getting in front of people. Because I do love to speak. I love to share. I love to engage. I come like after a conference, I'm just like full of energy. So that's the second thing that comes to mind. I don't know if I have 3. Writing.
I have no idea. Yeah, you're writing.
Yeah, one-on-ones with community, warm introductions, live speaking gigs. And then you had mentioned content, but tell me, like, again, content can mean a zillion different things. I did the Instagram experiment, wanted to play in traffic. I stopped because I just like I am a long form writer, and that is what lights me up. I wake up and just pour. I just like it just happens every morning.
I agree. I consume it. Your piece about the piece about the priestess. I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God, that's a classic. I should.
Yeah. So actually, that's been happening right now that I've set aside these chunks on my calendar. I woke up this morning. I had space. I didn't go right to my emails. I listened to a podcast with Dory Clark about diversity in thought. I was so inspired. I wrote about it, and then I got to the computer and I just spilled out this 3-minute read with all these connections to help essentially. That's what motivated it, but also to just like add another piece to the perspective. So I put it out there today on LinkedIn, and I made it an article. I'm still trying to think about how to bring that into my website, or if I need to, but that just happened, right? So that's the content I'm referring to. It was like an actual 3-minute article, not a post, and then wrote a post, connected the post to it.
Killer. I love it. So this is where I really want to encourage and guide everyone. keep it simple. There is a whole hookup for like LinkedIn to website to newsletter integration that I'm literally having my my marketing partner, who's the only person I have ever considered actually working with. Because she can read my mind. I'm a terrible manager, terrible, and she does not require my management, which is the only reason I contract her. And for the first time, I've been doing this for 7 years, and I'm finally doing this. Like, it is so not critical. Now it makes sense because I've got a big LinkedIn following, and people are like getting them through that funnel of like, step by step to actually get them on from LinkedIn to my newsletter. I think enough people will do it for it to be worthwhile. For now, these are the 4 things that are your job. That's your whole job. That's it. Right. And so we can start measuring, right? Let's start again. This is where we'll really get into this in detail for everyone tomorrow, and we'll generate a bunch of options, right? So I went, kind of directly to the point with Dawn here for what her leading indicators are, and then we'll talk about lagging indicators tomorrow as well. But now we have this sense of like suddenly it gets really clear about how we do it, right? That's kind of solve the mystery, right? Like, I mean, again, people will do it different ways. But do you agree, Dawn, that if you were to do these things on a regular basis, you could make 10K a month? Close one.
Well, I don't know if I agree with you, but I love seeing these 4 things up here. I'm doing that all the time. I'm like that. And then if you start to get to do the workshops, right? Like you actually get to go and sit with a collective group of super smart, interesting people to help them understand their common ground and create a strategy through that experience. I mean, that would be like, my heart just exploded. So
energize that future, because it's not far away. Like, again, I really want to, gosh, I'm so tempted to just do this now. So my intuition is telling me to do it. So let's just do it. If you do every month, okay. So we're talking about in January, next month. If you were to do 10 one-on-ones with people you already know and like, by the way, like, could that be less work? I mean, this is what we're going for, is like, we're going for a lifestyle of hanging out with our friends as a business activity. You can write those lunches off in your taxes, by the way. They provide you with 10 warm introductions that you follow up with. Something's fucked up with this cell. We don't care. Okay. They give you 10 introductions that you then follow up with. That's all we're measuring for that. We trust, and this is actually a concept that we talk a lot about in the reInvent program, about the spreadsheet versus the river. When we're talking about the leading and lagging indicators, it's really gratifying to be able to be like, oh yes, I did 10 of these and 10 of these and 1 of these and 20 of these. And this effort perfectly correlated with 1 client. And the fact of the matter is that while it's important to measure, right? It's important to have metrics so that then we can, in June, when I fuck right off and do 0 of all of these things, it's completely 0 mystery about why my lagging indicators have dropped, right? I'm not freaking out about my business being broken. I'm like, oh no, I just need to go do the leading indicators again, right? So important to measure. However, there's just something a little bit more woo at work here, as there typically tends to be in my experience doing this. The river, as opposed to the spreadsheet, is sort of this trust, this surrender to the flow, that as you continue to meet with people, as you can consider to do live speaking gigs, as you consider to show up and write content even when you don't want to, you are generating current in this river. And it's really hard to attribute every client. Like 1 month, there's going to be 10 clients, even though you did fucking nothing differently. Right. And you're just going to have to be like, wow, I was just putting a lot of current into that river for a long time, and it got me to where I was meant to be. And like, not perfect attribution as to why. So in moments where, again, like things have been in massive flux for me this last year, I was really revisiting a lot of my leading indicators. Like the same old things weren't generating the same current as they were. And it was really confusing. Right? Until I recognized that there was just a different type of current I needed to be generating, because the same spreadsheet math was not yielding the same results. It was crazy. It was, I mean, God, Sarah, Sarah who just came in, Sarah saw me like in the verge of a meltdown when she was at my house one day, like a year ago. And I was trying to like grapple with this and figure out what the problem was. Right. And so seeing it as a river was really about like, okay, doubling down on what was working was the spoiler alert. So anyway, there's the spreadsheet, really important to track these metrics, but also there's the river and trust that if you keep generating current, just keep meeting with your community, keep taking care of yourself, keep doing the things that nourish you, even if it's not, you know, a speaking gig that you track on a spreadsheet, it'll get you to where you're going. It just, I don't know how to convince anyone of this, but I promise it does. Okay. So we've got this math sorted out. This is our first experiment that we just designed for you, Don. What you're going to do is in January, execute on this, and then fill out your lagging indicators, which we'll generate for you tomorrow. Of course, the most interesting one being revenue, right? So
Awesome.
again, yeah, so there's a number of new clients, and then the, you know, one, say, or maybe all this effort gets you 3. Like, we'll see.
I have one in mind that just got 40 million in funding. I'm just like, I just want that client.
Go get it. And having to talk strategy about that as well. So here's where we get to play around with the revenue projections, right? Because again, the question, kind of the leading question, for question number 2 or exclamation number 2 that keeps people from going all in on this is, what if I go broke? And then they completely skip this whole exercise of just planning to not go broke. like this is actually, like, for all us type A sweet little brains, like, this is actually really natural. But again, our whole body seizes up and we just can't touch. It's like, this is like too hot to touch. We can't even engage with it. So we're just gonna, like, in a humorous and playful and curious manner today, having done all of our kind of body grounding exercises at the beginning of this session, we're gonna fuck around and on the spreadsheet and just like see, okay, you want 500K gross revenue? Totally, that's doable. Let me show you how I do it. So again, at this stage, I've got more than one product, right? So again, you're looking at at least this is my 2023 thing. Actually, this time next year, this RAISE program that's really focused on helping people rise in their corporate careers, I'll have phased out. So I'm really doubling down on reInvent, helping people leave their corporate roles. It's $8,500 a pop for the whole 6 months, all included. And let's see, this is, you know, I haven't done this exercise for 2024 yet. I should, but I'm planning, you know, let's get one new client in January, and then another in February, another in March. Ooh, suddenly, like, the river has started to really speed up. I've got a bunch of momentum now, having invested a lot in Q1, and I get 3 clients coming in April. I'm on vacation in May, 3 in June, 3 in July. No, I can't see my spreadsheet. 0 in August. You get the idea, right? So right now we're just mapping out how much money this would make me if I were to pull this off. So we're starting to see the links here, right? So if I want 3 clients, or, you know, let's call it, if I want 1 client in June, I probably have some hypotheses for how many events I need to do, right? Usually I get, 1 client per event is that's easy. 3 clients per event, that's probably a little bit of a stretch, but like, I could aim for that. I could really, and especially, gosh, if I like really leaned into follow up and like really like reached out to you guys individually afterwards, if I felt like you were really engaged in the chat and all of this, which, so by the way, this is definitely going to happen. So prepare yourself. Suddenly it's like, wow, I could really lean into maximizing this event. Or there are some times where I have a family emergency, I'm in a season of rest and recovery, and summer and winter, that is for me. I sometimes do an event because I love them, and I don't maximize the follow-up. And then things are looking more closer to 1 client per event, right? So again, like, I get to lean in or out of my own seasonality here and like kind of go with that flow, but knowing that if I double down, I can get 3 clients. If not, I can get 1. That's a very reasonable expectation, right? So suddenly, I know how I'm gonna get these 3 clients in June or whatever it was. Make sense? Any questions about this? So again, I'm kind of jumping between spreadsheets. I don't want to lose anybody. Any questions so far?
Can I take it back actually for a
Yeah.
second, Becca?
Yep.
So I think at the very beginning when Dawn was sharing her beautiful stitch, you kind of did this voodoo of prioritizing it.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if you can break that down a little bit more, because that's, I think, the part where I'm still a little stuck is like, what is it actually? All this is, numbers are fun and scary, but yeah, I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to that transition.
So this is part of the like hand-to-hand coaching that goes down in a group session and in one of the many like one-on-one calls that people utilize. I just, again, in my programs, it's like, throw a one-on-one session on my calendar when you need to. Like, I trust you. That's important, and it'll be really important, like impactful. And so for those targeted moments, we'll go through and break down your productizing thing. And again, this is where, kind of like writing your own resume, it's really hard to do on your own, really easy for anyone to help you do it, especially someone like me who's done this 1,000 times, right? So again, experience goes a long way, product background goes a long way, and it's just different for everybody. So there's not like, I don't know that I can like recreate a structure to it. I was hearing what Dawn was saying and writing down the notes, and then I had her identify the deliverables that she had stated in her stitch. Like, she told me what the products were, right?
Yeah.
And so for everyone, kind of like in the stitch, and again, this is where the stitch, the revisions and iterations with a guide really makes a big difference, because most people, pretty much everyone, comes with a first draft that is vague, non-specific, or just feels energetically really compromised. Like they haven't, for example, like they're like, oh yeah, I guess I'm saying that I'm an expert at helping people interview for product roles, but like, ew, like that's like such a dissert, like, like doesn't accurately describe what I really do. But, and they just energetically haven't really integrated the fact that that's the gateway to the temple, like we talked about yesterday. And so again, like in one 30-minute session, we can hammer all of that out. And it's just,
Great.
I don't know.
Thank you.
And like, it's hard for me to do it for myself too. That's why I have again, this is pretty universal. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And if you want tomorrow, if you want to go ahead and just volunteer off the bat, we can start with your stitch, productize it real quick to generate the tiers, and then develop a marketing funnel for it. So you can be in the love seat if you want.
Jamie, thank you.
All right, perfect. Beautiful. So, so suddenly, and again, you guys have access to the spreadsheet now. So make a copy. Your 20, so you can turn it into the 2024 revenue projection, obviously. That's what I'm going to do. You've got, obviously my product tier is at the 10K product tier. Actually, it's 9K, 8,500 if you pay all at once. Again, most of you, keep in mind, my business is 7 years old. So I've had the bandwidth and the time to explore multiple product lines. You will start with one. Anyone want to tell me why you're going to start with one? Got my awkward silence water bottle.
Does it have to do with it just makes things more simple, and that way you can learn from one thing, minimizing the effort.
Yes.
And then use that to inform your next experiment.
Ding, ding, ding. That's it. That's really it. It's about reducing the number of complicating variables, right? You will also get really clear data about how it felt for you, right? If something is like, again, you could be doing 3 different things and then end the day and be like, I feel tired, but also like not, not like I want to, not devastated, like, well, what's happening? It's really hard to know, right? So we really want a clear signal around what your intuition is telling you, and be able to iterate on that, right? Because really the whole point is to look forward to your day. And if you're not having fun, the whole thing is broken. like we are anarchists in the sense that we are totally rejecting and refusing to acknowledge all these oppressive systems that keep us feeling the way we don't want to. We are radical, outrageous artists out here just inventing shit, right? And there's backwards engineering how to get paid for it, right? So yeah.
So what I've learned,
good. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. One of the things I've learned later in my product career is, I think when I first started out, it was about what is like the best way to do things, right? Because you're in learning mode. And then later, once you get some experience and you really observe the world, you like realize that like there are different ways of doing business and generating revenue. And so there's ROI in energy as well as revenue. It's not just one thing. And so this is just that, right? And so it's just like really freeing to have kind of this playground for yourself when you're able to measure ROI in that way. So yeah, just wanted to share that. And also a question I had was, how was like the first 2 years for you? And the reason I ask that is, again, they're like preconceived notions of if you work at like a venture capital backed startup, how the first 2 years are. But then if you're running your own business, again, it can feel energizing. It doesn't have to feel like the way like a VC backed startup is like taught, or like described. So yeah, I'm curious how that was.
Perfect segue, Shika, thank you. So for me, I told everyone that I would tell everyone how much money I made in my business. So it was a messy start for me. So I refused to invest in coaching because I was too scared, right? I was like, well, I'm not making any money. Like, how could I possibly spend money? Turns out like 90% of businesses and spend money before they get revenue. Like, that's totally normal. So yeah, there usually is an important way to think about investing time, money, or both in getting some of these shortcuts and foundations, right? Or again, being incredibly resourceful and like, being on LinkedIn enough or connected to my community enough to like show up at this free session, right? Like, again, that was a time investment in of itself. So it was really messy for me. I think I started at 80K because I didn't do this product tier brainstorm. And basically, I think I described this in an email in my newsletter the other day. Like, the way that went down was I was like, okay, I don't know, like, can I like charge anything for what I do? What do I even know? I don't know. I'm not like, kind of belong here. And I was like, finally, I was like, okay, I'll just like charge $200 an hour or something, right? Having not done any kind of business modeling for how many hours I would have to spend to generate like a livable income in New York, right? Like, I just didn't do this exercise because despite being a seasoned business leader and product leader, I was too like fucked up and anxious to like sit down and actually do this. So you are already ahead of 90% of people just by sitting down and being very practical about how many units you need to sell to get to a certain income stream. And you know what? If there aren't enough hours in your life to generate the income you want, then we need to either raise your prices or adjust your offering, right? So again, oh my God, if I had just invested like $5,000 for somebody to tell me that one time, it probably would have like saved me. It probably would have made me $1 million. Like, it's wild to think about the time I lost there. So that's why I'm really passionate about doing it here for you guys. So that was about 80K. Then it was like partway through the next year that I invested in a coach to just help me feel better, right? So it was she was a business coach, but also worked a lot with energetics and helped me through a lot of this trauma around worth and like owning some really fucked up stuff that happened to me in the past so that I could like find my voice again. And I think that year I made 160, right? And then the year after that, I was off to the races. I had like healed a bunch of stuff and was really owning my voice and my story, which I did with, again, I was able to do that consistently, with continued guidance from my coach, Mandy. And then I made, I think, just over 300K the following year. So again, map out, again, if you want to start with 300K and it's like, it's not even worth it unless you're making 300K next year, break down how many of each thing you would have to sell to make 300K. Very simple, right? 300K, how much? I don't even know how much monthly that is. Again, I can't math and talk at the same time, but just again, run on your calculator. Like, there's a monthly amount that represents. Maybe give yourself 2 months off because vacation's important. Like, it's probably, call it 20K, right? 20K, does that make sense? No, 30K a month for 10 months, right? Equals 300K. So how many, great, that's 3 $10,000 clients. That's not that much. That's totally accessible if you really take seriously this leading indicator process, right? And you're like, awesome, here's a set of leading indicators that really represent to me my flow. Because again, if you are feeling scarcity, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling really insecure about being seen and visibility and, I don't know, baggage around charging money and all that shit, you will get reflections of that insecurity mirrored back to you in every single person you meet. So there's a whole how to ensure that you're getting people like that you're talking to people who are really qualified leads, that you're talking to people who are ready to buy from you. Because statistically, there's more people who are not ready than who are, right? So how do you draw those people in? Like part of it's messaging, it's a small part of it. This is the lesson that I learned the hard way. The following year after I made, or it was last year, I'm getting my years confused. There was a time after the 300K where I made half that, right? And again, you know, it's still six figures. It's fine. I've got a solid enough business that I'm not going to have any serious problems. But it was definitely a shock to the system, and I was like, "What the fuck is happening? I'm doing everything the same as I used to," and it was this whole spiritual journey to untangle why I was doing all the same stuff, all the same content, all the same leading indicators, and yet there were these people that I was meeting bottom of my funnel who were just not ready. They were on the precipice of something, but not feeling safe, not feeling empowered. And it's 100% because I was not feeling safe and empowered. It is so annoying, you guys. I cannot tell you how, as a type A problem solving brain, that the spreadsheet couldn't solve this problem for me. Oh boy, that was brutal. So again, there was once you get past this initial point of like really just trying a bunch of stuff, doing a disciplined product process to land on your offering that's working for people, you can get to six figures relatively easily. Staying there is a whole different ballgame, trust me. So the journey never ends, but why would we want it to? So does that answer your question, Chika? That was kind of a long parable version of the answer, but yeah, don't, there's no need to thrash. If you feel like you're thrashing, just get help. There's a way to do this that is full of ease. The tactics are really clear, actually, and like, if you're getting in your own way, which we all do to varying degrees, like find a coach who can help you get out of your own way, and you'll be able to hit those big targets really early. There's literally nothing standing in the way of you securing 3 clients at 10K a month every month. Like that is so doable. I can't even tell you how doable it is.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. It definitely is energizing that way. And there are like different contexts of business, like a startup that's VC backed versus like your own. And there is a way of like doing business your way. And so
there's just no rules. Like I won't even say that there's different rules. There are literally no rules. There's not even rules in startups. It's just like a weird cult.
Yeah.
Themselves with their rules. I don't know, man. Like most people shouldn't even be raising VC money. That's a conversation.
Yeah. And I think maybe there's like some like fake complexity that is in some of these like organizations.
Oh, and the ego that gets rewarded. Come on, we've all been part of that work culture. We know. You are seeing it as it is. You are not crazy. Let me just be the one to tell you if I'm not the first, in case I'm the first one. Awesome. So again, we've got 5 minutes here. Anything that I wanted to, things like expenses. So one of the goals that I think is a really beautiful thing for me personally, that I, again, I just want to open up the realm of possibilities for everyone here. The projected expenses, and then, there's sort of these things around projected expenses, projected revenue, and then EBITDA, which is, oh my gosh, what is it? Before interest, taxes, depreciation, and whatever. It's everything. Your net revenue basically after all your expenses before taxes. And so suddenly we're looking at this number that's pretty dang close to 500K, which was my goal up here. I just broke it down into smaller pieces. You guys do this in your capacity as a business leader all the time. You do it as an analyzer. You do it as a person familiar with statistics. Again, I got like a little drunk 3 years ago and hammered out the spreadsheet, guys. like one evening in LA, like I straight up was like, oh my gosh, I'm like on one right now. And in a little manic episode fueled by wine, I hammered out all this stuff because your brain's totally capable of doing it. It's the easy part. This is the easy part. So I really want to encourage anyone. I'll send this link again. If this appeals to you as a thing to do in our 90 minutes, I highly encourage you to book that as well. Where did my chat go? Darn it. There we go. So calendly.com/camps/deep dive. I think that's right. If it's not, forgive me. It'll take you to my Calendly page. You'll find the 90-minute one. And for $1,000, guys, we can hammer out these deliverables for you. As $1,000 tier, this is like real high value. So really want to accentuate that. Again, be the person who just like goes for it if it feels right to you, right? Again, don't listen to your intuition. It should feel like a slam dunk, but it'll always feel like a stretch, right? Investing in yourself, taking your gifts seriously, making a fucking plan for real in front of someone else. So like, you can't just put it back in a drawer later. Like that's a big deal. But if you're feeling like, if you know that it's time to stretch through it, let's do it together. It'll be way more fun that way. In the meantime, play around with the spreadsheet. Oh my gosh, you can go ham, guys. There's like, I mean, there's like reports, there's all these like, you know, source things that you can mess with. I mean, the net like burn rates, cash, you can put input all of your stuff around like your savings and how much you want to maintain your savings versus how much you're willing to eat into it. I do recommend, by the way, I have some runway before you totally quit your job. Most people can't just table flip and start their business from scratch that way. If you can, bless you, that's awesome. You're still going to have a spiritual crisis while you do it. So, you know, no one can't run away from that part. But for most people, like we guide them through finding a job temporarily within a couple months that, you know, gives them a lot of time to really build this out while they have income coming in to support their energy and their sense of security and stability and routine. By the way, there's so much to be said for what we call a lily pad job in FEMS. And it's not a deviation from your goals. It's directly strategically in service of it, right? So again, mindset stuff that's just people get real messed up about, you know, leaving product versus staying. This precipitous thing. And it just, again, it's just not binary for most people. I'm the binary extreme kind of person where I, you know, couch surfed and was unemployed after getting fired from my final job in product, thank God. And you know, I did it the hard way, but you don't have to. Okay, great. That's a story for another day. Let me just check and see. Oh, so Ksenia, just one note about a gnarly market. So really common story to be held out to hold. Because again, once we get offered a story for our brain to consume, our brain then goes and finds all the supporting evidence for that story. My story that I'll offer is that the market has never been better. I have a ton of proof to support that, actually. The market has never been better for people looking for your gifts. Find the evidence.
That one's better.
Right? I like that story better. And it's just a story, by the way. It's also a story. It's not more or less true. But like pick the stories that serve you. And again, this is something that I work with all my clients, including the ones that are trying to find a job. My clients are getting jobs like fucking crazy. Like this, it's such a hard market to find a job. No, it's not. It's a story. There's, you know, as ever, there are strategies that are better given the circumstances, because the circumstances are always evolving. It's always been a bad time, but never been a worse time to be like scrolling job listings and blind applying. But like we never use that strategy in FEMS because it's just not a good one, right? The market for jobs and consulting opportunities and anything you want to do is just as strong as it's ever been for someone who wants to leverage their community, authenticity, their voice, their passion for impact to make money. It's never been a better time. Awesome. All right, guys. Such a gift to be able to be here with you today. Come tomorrow. It's going to do like a little Mad Libs exercise where you put together your funnel, and it's going to be 3 steps, and then that's your job. The end. Again, the how to actually do this, how to pull it off is such a deeper spiritual thing beyond these tactics. So I really encourage you to book a call either with me for a 90-minute session. We'll hammer out this plan for you. Boom. Or if you're interested in the longer term support with people on this shared journey where we're doing stuff like this generatively, collaboratively all the time, as you like start making money and like raking in like cash to do the things you really love. Like, wow. If you're interested in that and you want to talk about, you know, learn more information, talk about exactly, you know, make sure I'm an expert in your specific goals, grab time at this link here. Okay, beautiful. So BYOB, be your own boss. Okay, beautiful. That's it. I'm going to stop sharing here. You guys have access to this spreadsheet. You know, I'm big on not gatekeeping, but also this is a big strategic advantage. So, you know, share it with people that you think are going to support you in your journey. But also, like, you know, this is a good thing to have in your back pocket. And make sure that anyone you're giving it to gets the right training and understanding what, you know, how to use it and uses it in the right spirit. Because again, all these tools can be used for, you know, to generate plans that are less in alignment with how we want to be in the world. So anyway, let me know if you have questions. I'm so excited for all the people who've already signed up for sessions and for consults to explore FEMS. I cannot wait to get everyone who's already done it started, and so can't wait to see who else is ready to do it and ready to go. So use those links, and I will talk to you then. All right, guys, see you tomorrow.
Thanks. Bye.
Everyone.